Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Well, today it's my youngest son's birthday and I'm going to be making him a cappuccino cheesecake, which is one of his favorites. And I found this recipe years ago online and I don't really remember where, but I am going to be adding a couple of my own unique little twists to it as we go. So let's go ahead and get started and I'll show you what's going on. Okay, right here I have the beginnings of the crust for the cheesecake. And what this is it's divided into 3 parts. Now you can do this all just almonds, all pecans, or do it like I'm doing right here, or any kind of blend you want. So if you want it totally gluten-free, go with just the nuts. It makes a really great crust in place of a graham cracker crust. What I'm using here is a 1/2 cup of graham flour, a 1/2 cup of ground almonds, and a 1/2 cup of ground pecans. So you have 1.5 cups total is what you want for your base, whatever that is. And it can, it can just be graham crackers if you want, ground up real fine. I find doing a blend, instead of using graham crackers, I just add a ground flour because to me that just makes it easier. Turns out really nice. But again, gluten-free, just go with the nuts. All right, and to this I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of melted butter and mix that in. And oops, I forgot to put the sugar in first. You want to put a couple of tablespoons of sugar in first. So there's 1 and there's 2. And then just blend that together real well. And kind of like the way I like to do my regular pie crust, there comes a point where you may even just want to use your fingers, get your hands in there to break these pieces up even smaller. This is how I do my regular flour pie crusts, is I just run it around my hands. And I do have a video or 2 out on how I make my pie crusts. And you can just do a search on that on my channel, if I don't think to link to it above. And now I'm going to pour that into my cheesecake pan here. Well, it's not really technically a cheesecake pan, but it's just a big pan. But I call it my cheesecake pan. And you can see I still have some almonds that didn't get fully ground up. They're more like slices, and that's cool. I'm just going to leave it just like that. And so now what I want to do is I'm going to bake this in my toaster oven for 10 minutes at 325 degrees. And so while that's baking, I'm going to go ahead and start getting the rest of the cheesecake mixture going. All right, now in this bowl I have 4 packages or 32 ounces of organic cream cheese that I softened on my wood stove. And so to this I'm going to add 1 whole cup of sugar, and in this it's 1/2 coconut sugar organic and 1/2 organic cane sugar. You want to kind of be careful with your coconut sugar when you're adding it to stuff like this, because if you use all coconut sugar, it's really going to bring out a different flavor that you may or may not want. So what I like to do, just to be on the safe side, is I go 1/2 and 1/2, where I can get a little bit more of that healthier coconut sugar, more of those minerals and stuff, while also getting, keeping the more true flavor of the cheesecake. So now what I want to do, I can take this off here now, is blend this. An electric mixer is going to be much easier. And I did find I still do have my electric mixer. I just never use it. I forgot about that. I was thinking that when it broke down and we'd tossed it. But I'm going to stick to my hand mixer because this is what I do. Just want to kind of blend that real well. And actually, if you're using a hand mixer like this, the softer your cream cheese is, the easier this is going to be for one, but then when you start adding your other ingredients, it's going to get easier yet. What I have here is just a shy 1/4 cup of a very strong coffee, and I'm going to pour that in there. And then you're going to need 1 cup of sour cream. Well, this is 8 ounces right here, so that would be 1 cup. Nancy's organic sour cream. And we'll just add that whole package in there. And we'll start blending that in there real good. And oops, I'm always doing this. I forgot the flour. You need 3 tablespoons of flour. That's obviously going to help the set. Blend it in. Again, electric mixer, you may want to use that instead. Especially with an amount this much, it makes the hand mixer much harder to use. But I'm kind of a die-hard. I like to keep using the off-grid stuff as much as possible. Besides, it makes you work your arms. I'm also going to add, this is just an extra thing, and I meant to do this in the crust as well. I was going to add about a tablespoon of this to the crust. This is my homemade coffee extract. It's actually a few days from being done, and I haven't strained it out yet, as you can tell, but I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of that in there. Oh man, it smells wonderful. And then you're going to want to put in your eggs, 4 eggs, one at a time. And then one more thing that may be a matter of taste is you can add just a little bit of cinnamon. A 1/4 teaspoon or so. That's more than a 1/4 teaspoon. I'm just saying a 1/4 teaspoon will be your minimum you'll want to add. Maybe up to a teaspoon. It just depends on how much of that flavor you want in there. All right, that looks pretty good right there. All right, before I put the filling in, I'm going to go ahead and just sprinkle a little bit of this coffee extract right over this crust. Put quite a bit in there. This is going to be baking for an hour, or an hour and 10 minutes total. So, yeah, that'll be kind of nice to let that bake in there. And then we'll go ahead and pour this mixture just right over the top. And this should fill that right up. This is why you want either a dedicated cheesecake pan, which I really don't care for the springform pans myself. I had one, just didn't care for it. I'd prefer to make my cheesecakes in these. I realize it makes it easier to get the cheesecake out using springform, but I like this pan here. It's my cheesecake pan. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick that in the oven. And I found out this pan is actually just a little too big for my toaster oven. It was fine for the crust, but I'm going to have to do this in my conventional oven. I could also do this in my camp oven, but I don't feel like trying it this time since this is a birthday cheesecake. I want to make sure it comes out nice. So I'm going to do this in my conventional oven, 10 minutes at 450, then reduce the heat to 250 and bake for another hour. Obviously, you're going to want to check it throughout and see how it's doing. So I'm going to get baking this, and when it's all done, I'll be back and show you what I do as the last step. Okay, my cheesecake's out of the oven, and it's cooled off enough now that I can move on to the next step, but I'm hiding it right now because any of you experienced cheesecake makers will know if you don't use a springform pan and all the special tricks involving water and stuff that I just don't like to bother messing with, the top of your cheesecake, once it cools, is going to crack severely. And I don't care because of what I like to do next. So you can see big cracks. However, you know what I like about this? This tells me it's done. So I don't have to worry. There's no jiggly. I can see right down in there, and it is done. But that is why I bring out my secret weapon. So what I did is I got out some of my organic whipping cream from the freezer and thought I'd give it a try again, because usually I have a heck of a time getting pre-frozen whipping cream to whip up nicely. Usually what I do is I go buy some fresh from the store, and I forgot this time. Well, I managed to get it to work. And I think the key was thawing it out a little bit slower and just taking my time with it, and also adding the sugar and the extract to it before I started whipping it, because usually you don't do it until towards the end or you will never get it to whip up. But once it's frozen, what I find is it just wants to turn immediately to butter when I try to whip it. But it seemed like that seemed to be the trick. And it still has a different consistency than if I was to use it fresh, but it's still very good. So what I did was I added, I used the whole container, and I added 2 tablespoons of my coffee extract that I made there. And if you haven't seen my video on how I'm making my extract, you can go ahead and check that out right up here. And yes, you can do it alcohol-free by doing 1 part water to 3 parts food grade non-GMO glycerin. Next time I do it, I think I'm going to go 3 parts of the glycerin to 1 part of the spiced rum, and see if I can get just a little more of the flavor without so much alcohol. So I'm just spreading the whipped cream. I'm trying to keep it just on the inside of those edges there, so you can just see the edges of the cheesecake peeking out. And how much you decide to put on there is entirely up to you. I'm going to use the whole thing. My son loves whipping cream. So I did also add 2 tablespoons of the organic cane sugar to this too. So 2 tablespoons, or per cup of whipping cream, 1 tablespoon of the sugar, 1 tablespoon of extract. Okay, so now that you got it on there, you can just kind of do whatever you want. You can do something like this to get that kind of look. You can do this to get little peaks. Entirely up to you how you want to do your whipping cream. And oh my goodness, the taste of the coffee extract in the whipping cream is so good. All right, now a couple other options. Since we just like to have a little bit of chocolate, we're going to go ahead and take some of my homemade chocolate syrup. And I do have a video on this, one of my older ones, so the lighting isn't perfect, but I'll go ahead and link to that right up here. And this turned out a little thicker than usual. It's almost more like chocolate fudge. So then what I like to do is just kind of drizzle a little bit on there. Just like I do with my chocolate cream pie. There you have it. Cappuccino cheesecake with a homemade whipped cream topping and a little bit of chocolate syrup on top. You could also consider sprinkling just a little bit of cinnamon on the top if you like. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and put a picture of what it looks like once I've sliced into it right here. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video and that maybe you learned something new, and it will get you out there experimenting with those extracts that you've made. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.